to the coast. That's going to make for a grey, cold day on Tuesday. Some fog around first thing across parts of England and Wales. May take a while to clear, but then we should see some sunny spells. A lot of cloud across North Wales, North West England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, with some rain trickling into the Highlands. But some brighter skies across Aberdeenshire. Could see highs of 12, maybe even 13, whereas further south, 4-5 degrees, even with the sunshine where the fog sticks. Temperatures may struggle to get much above freezing, and a frost will return pretty rapidly tomorrow evening as well. And again, we could have some fog patches thickening up across the south. Further north, a shift. We've got these lines of rain spreading in. These are weather fronts bringing a damp start to Wednesday morning across parts of southern Scotland, and that rain will trickle its way into northern England, parts of Wales as well. So a different day here. Behind there is those weather fronts. Brighter skies will follow on Wednesday across Scotland and Northern Ireland, with just a few showers. In the south, it'll be another cold day on Wednesday, but signs of temperatures starting to tick up here as we go through the rest of the week. Goodbye.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Good evening. Accusations of Tory sleaze. Yes, it's not a great start for Rishi Sunak's premiership, but is he a leader? Is he being decisive? We'll debate that. We'll find out that over half of British households are now net receivers from the state in this country. The report's author joins us. Energy rationing, effective energy rationing, starts this week. Believe me, you need to find out and learn more about it. And joining me on Talking Pints, when he comes from a Kent cricketing dynasty, he's a former England cricket captain, Chris Cowdrey. But before all of that, let's get the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Nigel, thank you, and good evening to you. The top story on GB News this evening. The Prime Minister has asked his independent ethics advisor to investigate the Tory party chair's tax affairs. Nadeem Zahawi has welcomed the investigation, saying he's confident he acted properly throughout. The former Chancellor has admitted, though, he paid a penalty to HMRC following an error over shares in the polling company YouGov, which he co-founded. He hasn't disclosed the size of the settlement, which is believed to be almost £5 million. And the BBC chairman, Richard Sharp, says he welcomes a review of the processes around being appointed to the role by the Commissioner of Public Appointments. That's after Mr Sharp asked for a scrutiny panel to examine potential conflicts of interest. following claims he was involved in securing a loan of up to £800,000 for Boris Johnson. He insists he didn't make a loan or arrange any financing and only made an introduction to a guarantor. Well, also today, thousands of ambulance workers are striking for the third time in 5 weeks. Unison and GMB union members across England and Wales walked out, along with staff at 2 hospital trusts in Liverpool. Further industrial action is planned in the coming weeks by nurses and other NHS workers. Union leaders are calling for fair pay, accusing the government of not wanting to find a resolution. And as you've been hearing, households with smart meters could receive discounts if they cut their energy use for the second day in a row. 26 suppliers signed up to the National Grid's Demand Flexibility Scheme, which involves paying businesses and households to turn off appliances for an hour or 2. The electricity system says it's going to run the scheme again tomorrow afternoon after the first live test ran from 5 until 6 p.m. today. And Ofgem says the energy price cap could fall below £3,000 from April. It said due to the fall in the wholesale price of gas and electricity, it was possible to lower average costs for households. It would mean little savings for energy users due to the government's price guarantee, which protects from higher prices. But it could save the government billions of pounds. And an update for you on the fire in Scotland today in Edinburgh. A firefighter is, in fact, we're told, fighting for their life after battling a blaze at the famous former department store in the centre of Edinburgh. Scottish Fire and Rescue were called to the Jenners building at around 11:30 this morning. We understand 22 emergency vehicles sent to the scene. The Fire Brigades Union saying at least 5 firefighters have had to be taken to hospital for treatment. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News, where now it's time for Farage.
Good evening. Well, after the chaos of 2022, 3 prime ministers, 4 chancellors, 5 education secretaries. No, what we were going to get with Rishi Sunak, it was perfectly clear. He told us at the start, this government will have integrity, professionalism and accountability at every level. Well, what is happening right now is a nightmare for him. We begin, of course, with former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, his relationship with Richard Sharp, the BBC chairman. Now, nobody here is suggesting any impropriety at all, but it's clear that Mr. Sharp made an introduction and helped facilitate in some way a loan, a quite perfectly legal loan that Boris Johnson took. But again, it all begins to look like a little bit of an Oxbridge charmocracy. More seriously is Nadhim Zahawi, who was for a brief period of time the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Now, he has been found to have underpaid his taxes. No suggestion, by the way, he was deliberately and willfully not paying his taxes. And when you sell shares in a big company and you've got overseas holdings, it is complicated, but very difficult for somebody as Chancellor of the Exchequer not to be paying tax when at the same time this government is putting taxes up for the rest of us. More seriously, I think, the Greenshill scandal that, if you remember, David Cameron was very deeply involved in. When asked by officials in his own department in response to a Freedom of Information request from the Times whether he'd exchanged messages with David Cameron, Zahawi said no, but it now turns out that actually he did. I think it's very difficult for Nadhim Zahawi to stay on as chairman of the Conservative Party. I think it's inevitable that he'll be forced to resign at some point in time. I could be wrong, but I've seen this pattern played out again and again and again. And what in the face of all of this does Rishi Sunak as leader do? Well, he palms it all off to Laurie Magnus, his new ethics advisor, who will investigate, which means the saga now goes on for weeks and weeks unless Zahawi is removed. My question to you, is Rishi Sunak a leader? Let me know what you think. Farage at gbnews.uk. And I think he looks very, very unsure of his footing And I think this is going to bring them huge trouble when Zahawi inevitably has to resign. Right, that's my view. That's what I think. Let's go to somebody who'll be rather more directly affected by this than me. It's the Member of Parliament for Mansfield, Ben Bradley. Ben, good evening. Thank you for joining us. I know you've got votes coming up in the House fairly shortly. You know, we can go back to 1996, 1997, and, you know, OK, you were young then, but it was the look of sleaze that did the Conservative Party so much harm. Do you really believe that Nadhim Zahawi can stay on as party chairman when over Greenshill he clearly hasn't told the truth?
Oh, look, I think being held to the highest standard is really important in public office. I think clearly, Nadhim's made a mistake one way or another. I don't know enough of the detail behind the scenes to say he should stay or go or whatever. I'm perfectly willing to give what I think is a good colleague the benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise. But to be honest, for most of my constituents and most of us in Parliament getting on with our actual jobs, it's not been the front and centre of attention. We've got things to do.
Oh, no, you've got a lot to do. I don't doubt that for one moment. But, you know, if you're running a company and there's a problem over a senior member of staff, I would suggest what you do is you as the boss call people into the room, you ask for testimony, you make a decision, you act. What Rishi Sunak has done here, he's palmed this off to the ethics advisor, which means this row drags on for week after week, making it, Ben Bradley, harder for you to do your job as an MP.
Well, nobody likes it as an MP, clearly, when all of this dominates the newspapers, not least because, as I say, it's far from the most important thing going on in the country right now. Everyone would love for that not to be the case and for us to talk about all the many, many issues affecting our constituents. But as ever, and perhaps it speaks to a wider challenge across government, there's always an independent new body to push something off to, isn't there, in all sorts of public services and other challenges as well as this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just passing the buck as far as I'm concerned. Ben, what I've got you on, very important, I'm about to talk to the author of the Civitas report, which was published overnight, which says that in the year 2000, there were 24 million people living in this country who took more out of the system than they paid into it. And that number has now rocketed, exploded to 36 million. 53% of Britons, and by the way, we do include in this pensions, we do include in this healthcare. But the thought we're now living in a country that's had 12 years of Conservative rule, where a majority of the country are net recipients from the state, surely this can't go on.
No, absolutely, and they're really interesting statistics. It's kind of what I was getting at with that point about there being another quango or the ever-growing size of the state in terms of some of those areas where the government just doesn't need to get involved and the cost spirals through the roof. I think it's the answer to this is to have a very serious conversation about what is government for, because you can't be everything to everyone all the time, and nor should we try to be. I'd much rather government did less and did it better, and I think most taxpayers would be too, but I totally agree it's not a sustainable situation.
No, and your taxpayers, your hard workers in your constituency, whether they're self-employed or working for companies, they are paying ever more of their money to an increasing number of people, Ben, who choose not to work. Do you see those simmering resentments on the streets?
Well, you certainly see people frustrated at paying more tax and perceiving that they receive less. I'm not sure it's a direct correlation between, tax and unemployment, although welfare is the biggest level of spending. But I think public services more generally, so I run a council, we're having conversations about, maybe I don't do landscaping at schools anymore because the private sector can do that, because I need to fund children's services and adult care. Government needs to do the same, in my view, and focus on the things that really matter and get its fingers out of some of the other expensive stuff that they don't need to be involved in.
Ben Bradley, thank you for joining us. Ben Bradley there saying, well, he wants to give a trusted colleague the benefit of the doubt, which I fully understand. I just think the revelation about Greenshill makes Zahawi's position pretty impossible. We'll see whether I'm right, whether I'm wrong over the course of the coming weeks. One thing for certain, this story will not go away. Maybe, who knows? He'll resign before Wednesday, and Prime Minister's questions. We'll have to see. Can't be certain. What we can be certain of is that Tim Knox, the author of The Great Disconnect for Civitas, has produced some figures, and I just put those figures, Tim, to Ben Bradley. You know, and I can see it myself. People who are working, perhaps in many cases longer hours than they've ever worked, paying more tax than they've ever paid, being told by the Chancellor that over the next few years, the numbers of them that'll be dragged into 40p plus will be even greater. I mean, how have we gone from 24 million in the year 2000 to 36 million now? How have we got here?
Some of it, it has to be said, was the government response to the pandemic. That was a particular peak spike, which was caused by the government reaction to that. But over a long period of time, whether it's 20 years, 40 years, 30 years, the trend is steadily upwards. In the 70s and 80s, it was about 40%, but now, as you say, it's 54%. And the real question is, how much longer can this keep going up? 60%? 70%? Would we be happy then? I think there is a real danger, and I don't think the problem primarily lies with individuals, shirkers at home, as it were. I think the problem is the system.
OK, I mean, clearly an ageing population must play some part of this equation.
Not as much as you think, actually, no. To their credit, Osborne and Cameron actually managed to reverse the decline just by a few percentage points at a time when the population was ageing. It has much more to do with specific measures, with excessive, not excessive, but with incredible rises in health spending, which we've seen over the last 20 years, with the pandemic measures, which were extraordinary, and the whole Blair and Brown years saw a huge increase.
Is there also a change of mentality that the welfare state, you know, and Lloyd George and co started it over 100 years ago, but post-1945, the welfare state put there as a safety net and something that all civilised societies believe they should have to some degree. Is it now considered to be a right that the state gives you money as opposed to a safety net if things go wrong?
For some, obviously, that is the case, and that is deeply, deeply regrettable. But again, I think it is the problem is more the system. If the system encourages you to stay at home, not to go to work, then that is the problem. Why have we seen 500,000 people suddenly drop out of the labour force? That is a huge, huge question. It means that they stop paying tax, they are taking huge amounts of benefits, and if that continues, where will we end?
And a very large rise in the number of people who qualify as disabled, semi-disabled. What's going on there?
It's very difficult to divide them all out fairly, but clearly there are problems with the way the system operates. You don't suddenly get 500,000 people suddenly disabled. We would know there's something wrong. Obviously, COVID did have an impact, but much of it might well have just been that people realised that they could stay at home and live off a little bit less and actually have a perfectly good lifestyle.
Yeah, no, I'm sure there's some of that happening. So, Tim, you've analysed the problem, you've given these figures, which kind of we all knew that more and more people were beneficiaries of the state, but you put some hard numbers on this, and they're numbers that have really made people sit up and think. But is there any thinking over the road? Is there anybody thinking maybe we should try and turn this around?
Well, I think it's useful to look at one practical possibility, which of what could be done, which would make a huge difference very quickly, and that is to increase the state pension retirement age. You were talking about the beginnings of the welfare state. At that time, the pension age was set at 70 years old, when life expectancy was just 55 years old. Life expectancy now is 90 years old. So if you retire at 67 or 70, you're going to have well over 20 years of healthy life expectancy, whereas previously, obviously, that wasn't the case. But if you are going to say to the population at large, we are going to increase the age at which you can get your state pension, which some people will rightly say, oh, but I've been paying into it all my life.
And it was a contract, but yep.
Then, obviously, as a politician, you are going to be very unpopular.
Well, look
so this is very difficult. It's a very difficult problem to solve politically.
Look at Monsieur Macron. He wants to increase the pension age in France from 62 to 64, and there were 1 million people setting off firecrackers in the streets of Paris a few days ago.
Absolutely. It's a problem common to the whole of the Western world. It's one which won't go away, but will only get worse. Indeed, in the next year, 2, 3 years, it will get worse here. The extraordinary amount of money that's suddenly been injected into the whole benefit system is going to exacerbate these numbers. There is, for example, the 500,000 people who suddenly now, I think we were talking about, dropped out of the labour force. There's the energy price guarantee, which has given £400 to every single household. There's the 10% increase in benefits, which is going to kick in April. These all add up, and the number of dependents on the state is going to increase.
Well, Tim, I can only thank you for putting some numbers on what we knew was a growing problem, depressing though it is.
I wish I could be better of
Well, no, thank you. But Tim is right. We're going to have to think about this very differently. We simply can't afford to go on like this. We can't afford to have the pension age where it is. We can't afford, I'm afraid, for benefits to continue where they are. But these are all very, very difficult things for politicians to say to the public. Indeed, years ago, Tony Blair, shortly after he was elected, told Frank Field to go away and think the unthinkable in terms of pension age and benefits, and Frank did. And Tony Blair sacked him. It just shows you how difficult all this is. In a moment, we're going to talk about energy. You're being told, turn off the electricity, you'll get a bonus from your company. Isn't that wonderful? I'm going to tell you why in a moment. Actually, we're beginning energy rationing. Seriously.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you.
She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you.
GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So your views on Rishi Sunak, is he a leader? Is he a decisive leader? Because I just don't think he is. You have to say, Barry says, not a democratically elected one. Well, that's certainly true, Barry. What leadership qualities does he have? Because I wouldn't follow him through a drive-through. Very good. Another viewer says, yes, he's literally the Prime Minister. Well, he may well be the Prime Minister, but is he acting like a Prime Minister? See, I just think, and we've seen this over the years, you get a minister that's in trouble. More and more little stories come out, as they've done today with the Greenshill thing. And in the end, they have to go. And you look back on it and think it would have been better if they'd gone at the start. And by kicking this off into the long grass, by asking his ethics advisor to investigate, guarantees this will be in the news for weeks. Doesn't do him any good. Ryan says, no, he's a puppet. The real leader is Chairman Hunt. Yes, well, I have to confess, I've thought that from the very start. And finally, Andy says, he's obviously a leader. The question should be, is he an effective or good one? To which the answer would be emphatically no. All right, Andy, I get it in literal terms. Of course, he is the leader. What I meant, I was shortening it. What I meant was, is he a good, decisive leader? Maybe he gives us stability, though. That's what everybody wanted. Now, if you look at the newspapers and see the news reports, you'll be told that a wonderful thing is going on. Yeah, wonderful. The electricity companies are going to pay you money. How about that? That's cracking, isn't it, really? All you've got to do is be registered and turn off all your appliances between 5 and 6 p.m. My contention is, far from being good, this shows you what a blooming mess we're in. But somebody who knows far more about this than I do is, of course, friend of the programme, former government advisor on energy security, Clive Moffat. Well, Clive.
Good evening. It's
not as if you didn't predict this would happen. We talked about what happened when the weather got cold. Explain to folks what's really going on.
Well, I think it's appalling, really, that the grid is taking all this time for the grid to finally concede that it's going to become normal for them to either voluntarily induce customers to cut off their demand, or, I suspect, actually enforce some form of regular blackouts to actually balance supply and demand of electricity. And I think it's a testament to the fact that successive governments, I think for 15 years now, have, in their pursuit of decarbonisation of the electricity system, have basically ignored the need to underpin new investment in energy security, and in particular, the need to sustain gas for heat and power in the next 10 to 15 years.
Yes, I mean, however bigger stock we have of wind turbines or solar panels, we're always going to need that. We're going to need that fossil fuel back up for a very long time, aren't we?
Yes, we are. And I think the intermittency is an interesting question. People say, oh, wind is intermittent. There are two aspects to this. The grid has announced today a scheme which, quite frankly, is a drop in the ocean in terms of its impact on short-term balancing. It might do 100 to 200 megawatt if people subscribe and pay their, and agree with their supply to be cut off. But the point is, in terms of intermittency, we've had situations not very recently where the system's effectively 2 or 3, 4 days of high-pressure cold has resulted in wind only contributing 4% of electricity demand, despite the fact we have 10 gigawatt installed wind capacity. So nobody quite knows, if you quadruple that, which is the target by 2030, how much more balancing are you going to require? How much more money is going to have to be paid to actually reduce demand to match supply? And the point is that we need to increase, there's 4 things that need to be done here. We need to have more gas-generated power, both peak and base load. We need to have more gas storage.
Yep.
And we need to have a much more effective system of regulating voluntarily with industry's gas demand, so that the gas used for power is there, and gas for heating domestic households is there when it's required. The final thing I think we point is that what this whole decision today reflects is that in many ways the electricity system operator, which is still a part of grid, and the Ofgem, for that matter, have both ceased to be fit for purpose. I think the governance of the energy market, in particular the way that politics, everyday politics, is playing a role in what are long-term investment decisions. We need to take the politics out of the energy, and I think we need to scrap Ofgem, and I think also we need to take the ESO role out of grid and create an independent strategic authority to balance both gas and electricity markets and set long-term, and by long-term I mean 30 to 40-year targets, which makes sense in terms of balancing security, affordability, and, in the longer term, reducing emissions.
Clive, thank you. It's not working. You've predicted for long. You've been saying for months this winter things could get tough, and they're beginning to get tough. Now, we've been doing our best to expose some of the flaws within this failing energy market that Clive described a moment ago. And we've said to you, if you're having problems, if they've upped your direct debit to an unreasonable level, let us help you. And I'm pleased to say some more of you who've been in touch with us have written into us. Gordon has written in to say, thank you, GB News, for the information regarding refunds for energy bills. My wife contacted our supplier today, and we're told the refund requested by my wife of £770 will be sent to us within the next 7 to 10 days. Thank you again. We're really pleased to help you there. And another example of this came from Nicola, and she'd received, as so many of us have, from her energy company, I can't name the suppliers, thank you. Your direct debit has been changed to £116 a month. This payment will start from the 2nd of February. So we did a bit of digging on her behalf, and this is the upshot. This morning, the energy firm phoned me and told me they are handling a refund of my credit balance of £500. Many thanks to Nigel and his team for taking the trouble to action this for me. It worked. So we are managing to stand up and help consumers and viewers and listeners of GB News. We'll go on doing it. That was the scandal of direct debits being put up. The other one we're going to dig into, and Ofgem, to be fair, at least have talked about this today, is that the number of forced installation of prepayment meters is running at a very high rate.
I think
thoughts on that, Clive?
Yeah, prepayment meters, I think energy suppliers like them because it gives them control. And also, as you described, it can get money up front and gives them nice credit balances in their balance sheet, which Ofgem have been critical of now. And the other thing is that both the government, the BEIS to some extent, and Grid are keen to have a lot of people on meters. You can't get on this flexibility scheme without a meter. And I think to some extent it unlocks the door to control in a way that is ominous. And so I traditionally would still recommend that you pay on the basis of what you've read.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And folks, I haven't got a meter. You must make your own minds up. But if you have a meter, they have total control over you. Clive, thank you. And we will go on telling you the truth about the problems in our energy market, but also trying to help you, the consumer. Yeah, it was actually...
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank. My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate. with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous. Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, Rishi Sunak looks weak and indecisive to me because he's not dealing with the Zahawi situation. Some more of your thoughts on Twitter. Someone says to me, fined twice for breaking the law. Unfortunately, it's no longer shocking or surprising to anyone. And that's the sad thing. We've come to accept the Tories' lies and breaking of the law as standard political landscape. Graham says, in a word, no. And Keith, I think, makes a very thoughtful point. About Rishi, he says, he seems a decent guy performing to the best of his ability. But I don't personally see a leader there. I see a manager. You instinctively know a leader when you see one. They have presence of character, can read the mood of those who follow, and can lead you forward from the front. And I'm afraid Sunak, I don't think, can do that. He is much more of a manager. Now, a fairly shocking story that has broken, talk about a what the Farage moment. Somebody who came to this country claiming to be a 14-year-old from Afghanistan as an asylum seeker, but it actually turned out he wasn't 14, he was actually over 20. He murdered somebody who was an aspirant Royal Marine. Most shockingly of all, he was convicted in Italy for drug dealing, a double murder in Serbia. He was refused asylum in Norway, and we let him into this country, and that's what he does. And I am not trying to demonise everybody that crosses the English Channel or comes in the back of a lorry, but if you let in a large number of single men, not knowing much about their backgrounds or their identities, what do you expect? And by the way, yesterday, 442 people crossed the English Channel and were taken into the processing centres at Dover and Manston. Some estimates are it could be as many as 80,000 this year. And while we're on it, 76 children have gone missing from hotels in Brighton and Hove. Now, probably a lot of them had lied about their age and they've absconded to go off and work in some of the criminal industries, but there is a real danger, actually, of serious, dangerous child exploitation also. But that's all right, because Westminster simply turns a blind eye. On a lighter note, Nigels are in danger. Yes, they've been in danger for some time. The name is virtually disappearing. So well done to Drusilla's Zoo down in Alfriston in East Sussex, because they have got a newborn, a critically endangered cotton-top tamarin monkey. And monkey, for those that are watching it, there is the monkey. And they've named the new monkey Nigel, because they want to keep tamarins going and they want to keep the name Nigel going too. So thank you, Drusilla's Zoo. The name has literally just disappeared off the cliff, and it's not, I promise you, all my fault. In a moment, we're going to talk cricket, we're going to talk leadership, we're going to talk what's going on with one of our great national sports. I'll be joined by a member of a great Kent cricketing dynasty, former England captain, Chris Cowdrey, joins me for Talking Pints.
Coming up on Dan Wootton tonight, how can our police forces bring back order to lawless Britain? Former New York mayor and lawyer to Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, offers his expertise on tackling crime. Plus, as failed mayor of London Sadiq Khan sneers at Tory celebrities like Jim Davidson, the legendary comic is ready and waiting to hit back. And is King Charles right to ban Prince Harry from the Buckingham Palace balcony if he attends the coronation? Join Dan, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. on GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's my favourite time of the day. It's Talking Pints. I'm joined by Chris Cowdrey. Chris, welcome.
Good evening.
To the
nice
programme.
To see you.
Good
Thank
to see you.
Thank you.
Now, as a lifelong Kent supporter. It's great to have you on the programme. The Cowdreys, what a Kent cricketing dynasty. Take us through all the Cowdreys that have played for the county.
Well, we've had a few, of course. My old man was quite good.
Yes, Collier wasn't bad.
He was a sort of Beckham of his era. I mean, he obviously played all those Test matches and became Lord Cowdrey for services to cricket and all that. And then there was poor little me, and then Graham, my younger brother, who very sadly died 2 years ago. Very popular guy, brilliant striker of a ball. These days, he'd probably play in the Test team under Ben Stokes.
Yeah, we're going to come to that.
And my young son Fabian, who did really well for 2 or 3 years, and then went out of the game.
Fantastic club. And obviously it's not been as good in recent years, perhaps, as it was. But who knows? Now that you're the president this year, great things, I've no doubt, are going to happen to Kent cricket. But for you, Chris, your dad played 114 Test matches. One of the classiest batsmen we've ever produced in this country. But let's face it, and a legend. Quite tough for you. Wouldn't it have been easier to be a footballer?
Yeah, it would. When I started playing, I never thought I'd last very long. I thought, I've got a good eye and I love playing, love sport. But I sort of didn't really have anything else to do. So I thought, I'll have a little, I got offered a contract, probably because of the name to begin with, to be honest. Then I started doing okay. And stayed in it. And, there are a lot of advantages early on because you get recognised because of your name.
Yeah.
And then the disadvantages start to appear. Like, if you're in bad form or something, wherever I went in the country, it's not like football. We were very accessible to the crowd, to any audience. And so I'd be having a little practice for the game. At least 10 people every single day of my career used to come to me and say, I saw your old man play here. He got 240. And I might just have got 0, 1 and 0. So I suppose I call that...
Quite difficult. Because you're being compared all the time, I guess, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it was quite difficult, me being at Kent to begin with, when I walked into a dressing room full of top players, all who'd played with him.
Yeah, you started in the 70s, didn't you, playing for Kent?
Yeah, 76, 7.
And it was still a great side, wasn't it?
It was a really good side. It was just the end of that amazing era where they won everything in the early 70s.
Yeah. It's been a bit of a disappointment ever since.
Well, on and off. No, on and off. They've had some great times.
I'm teasing.
Yeah. You being a Kent man.
Oh, absolutely. Of course, through thick and thin,
Do you know where I was born, by the way? Can I ask you a question?
Same place I was, I think.
You knew that?
Farnborough Hospital.
I thought I'd catch you out on that.
They've got a few things wrong there, haven't they?
You were in the Chris Cowdrey ward, I think.
Almost certainly. You're a couple of years ahead of me.
Yeah.
I'm pleased to say. Because it's... you got into the England setup. You started playing some Test cricket, and then that extraordinary summer of 1988, and the West Indies were. We were getting smashed, weren't we? Whether it was there or here, we were getting obliterated by them, and our batsmen were having a. Lammy was one of the people that did stand out against them, and he's been on this programme a couple of times, but the extraordinary. And I remember, I heard the news. Chris Cowdrey is going to become England captain. Well, that must be the right decision. And it lasted for one Test match. I've always been critical, of the cricketing authorities, the ECB. What the hell happened?
Well, I was brought in because we were having a disaster, of course, against the best side in the world. And so, Mike Gatting did it for a bit, and then John Embry, and I was the third, and then Graham Gooch to the last Test. But I was brought in, really, I was told, with a view to taking the side to India. I was a better player of spin than I was pace bowling, so it wasn't much fun when I got selected to play against the West Indies with Ambrose, Marshall, Walsh, Patterson, Benjamin, all that lot. And the idea was, they said, don't worry, we're probably going to lose to the West Indies. Doesn't matter. Get used to doing the job and you can take the side to India. But then I got injured after the first game. I missed the Oval Test. And to be honest, I expected to come back. But I never did.
I have to say, I remember this. You did one game, you had this little injury, it wasn't serious, but you were out there. And I couldn't believe they treated you so badly.
Well, they changed their mind. I think, I didn't play very well in the game at Headingley, but then not many of us did. Lammy, you mentioned Lammy. He pulled a calf muscle in that match. I think he was on about 60, 65, and it could all have changed. if he'd stayed fit and got 120, we were actually quite well in that game.
But you were quite well positioned to do the job, and as an all-rounder, there weren't any conflicts there particularly, which there can be with lead bowlers and batsmen, and to be dropped effectively after one game, you must have felt bitter about it, Chris.
Bitter is a funny word. Maybe I did to begin with. After a while, I just sort of got used to it somehow. I felt people kept coming up to me and saying, "Oh, well done. At least you did the job." Yeah. And I thought, well, actually, yes.
Yeah. That's what Liz Truss said.
Yeah. Well, very good. Yeah.
No, she did say that.
Oh, I did a better job than that.
Of course. Well, I mean, who knows what'll happen this year?
But I got picked because the Kent side, we had a very young side, inexperienced side. We were top of the table by miles. And I think people recognised that we really had something going, had an amazing spirit. And I sort of always felt that we got picked to be the England captain. That Kent side, we didn't have a lot of big names. All the big ones, Derek Underwood, Alan Knott, all those big names had pretty had retired.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing year. I still look back on it with a certain amount of fondness. We came second as well in that championship by 1 point.
I remember it. I do remember it. Agony.
So thanks for bringing that year up.
Well, no, I just think you were a bit unlucky. But and after that, Chris, a sort of so-called rebel tour to South Africa. And I remember having this conversation with Derek Underwood, because he'd done a similar thing a decade before. I mean, the truth is, cricket wasn't a very well-paid game in those days, was it?
It wasn't well-paid, but also from my point of view, I'd just gone through that England captaincy. It was then I was thinking, well, I'm not going to play for England again. There's no way, if they're getting rid of me after one game, that they're thinking of picking me again. It was an opportunity. I thought at the time, I was probably quite blinkered, but I felt at the time, what an opportunity again to go and play at the top level. And it never really happened there, because Nelson Mandela was released fairly early on in that tour, and we came home. But it was a pretty traumatic time in South Africa then.
And ultimately, however you want to argue this, you can never, ever separate sport and politics, really, can you?
Sadly not. Well, you'd know more about that than anyone. But
Well,
you can't.
You can't. I mean, it's just impossible. But hey, it happened, and since then you've developed this reputation as an after-dinner speaker and a compere, and you enjoy all of that, don't you?
I love it. I sort of got really into it working for the Lord's Taverners, doing a lot of work for the charity.
Great charity.
Yeah, and it got me talking, got me up on my feet a lot, and now they can't shut me up. I host a lot of events under the post and all those sort of people. We have a wonderful time hosting and occasional auctions and speaking. And
No, I've seen you in action. I've seen you in action. No, you're very good at it. You want to book somebody up for cricket dinner, he is your man. Cricket today, as I mentioned, you're president of Kent for this 2023 year. With two things going on here, it seems to me. One, the county game, the traditional county game, dying, in terms of no one's going to watch it. It's been crowded out by ever more one-day competitions, including this recent 100. Why the hell we need the 100? Well, we've got T20 anyway. I mean, do tell me.
No, I don't understand it. I think people in higher places are saying, give it a chance. Give it a year, 2, 3 years. This is our competition. This is English. This is British. But for me, we've got the 100, the T20, the county cricket, the 50-over game, Test cricket. I mean, it's too complicated. It's too much. I do see the 100 as bringing in a lot of girls, a lot of women to support it, and a lot of young kids who would probably never watch a game of cricket. But I thought T20 was sort of doing that anyway.
I've been to Beckenham, right, on a Sunday afternoon to watch a T20 game. I vowed I'd never do it because it wasn't really cricket, and yet, I've got to tell you, it was huge fun. There were loads of kids there. It ticked all of those boxes. We didn't need the 100. Anyway, perhaps for non-cricket supporters, we're getting a bit too deep. But the traditional county game, struggling to attract the levels of interest that it did. And yet, we do need that longer form. At least we thought we needed that longer form of the game as the nursery ground for Test cricket. And what has happened in cricket? I mean, goodness me. Joe Root, fantastic, one of our greatest batsmen ever at Test level. But one win in 17 matches as captain. And in he comes, Stokes. I mean, He's so alpha male. He's more alpha male than both of them. I mean, he is. I mean, extraordinary figure. And I got to be honest, I thought, I'm not sure making him captain's the right thing. I mean, I think he's won 9 out of 10 matches. Yeah. I mean, England, have you ever seen a better Test team than this?
I've never seen one playing like this, but there's never been a team in the history of cricket that's played like this. When Australia suddenly started scoring at 4 and over about 15, 20 years ago, people going, wow, 4 and over in a Test match. And they were running everybody ragged in the field. They were down the pitch a bit, playing shots. But no one's ever done what Stokes has done here. This is ridiculous. 500 we scored in a day against Pakistan on a pitch that no one could play a shot on. It was slow and low. And what he's done is amazing. He walked into that England dressing room, apparently, when he had just got the job, and he sat them all down and he said, from now on, you play like rock stars. And that was it. That was the team talk, apparently. That was done. And he just wants everybody to go and express themselves, and no one gets blamed if it goes wrong.
I have to say, he is the sort of chap you'd follow over the top, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And he does everything. He's the best fielder. He's a very, very useful bowler. If it wasn't for his knee, he'd be
that's why he never. Yeah, I mean, in terms of wickets taken, he'll never reach both of them in terms of wickets taken. But leadership really matters.
Well, leadership is the thing. He's got everything else.
Yes.
So he bats, he bowls, he fields as well as anyone. But his captaincy. This is what it is. Watching him at Lords, I've never seen anything like it. A batsman going well against us, 60, 70 not out, and he's got 4 slips and 2 gullies attacking him, and then a tail ender comes in, he takes all the slips out and puts them on the boundary. And I think he's confusing people.
Well, he's doing that. Yeah. And cricket, final thought on cricket as a game.
Yeah.
Because globally, cricket is growing in the most extraordinary way. There's even 30 clubs now around Chicago that have sprung up. The IPL, India. Is the sport... I mean, OK, we can argue about the 100 and T20 and all the rest of it. But actually, the game's in pretty good health, isn't it?
Yeah, I think T20 has done that. To be honest, that's brought in the masses.
I surrender.
No, but Stokes is now doing it. He and McCullum are bringing it back into Test cricket. Yeah. And if the world follows suit and they all try and play like that, and we've got the Aussies coming this summer,
I can't wait.
Which is going to be
it's going to be harder. Wait. I got to tell you, I can't wait. I did read a funny thing in Private Eye at Christmas, and they said that. They really felt that Test cricket was destroying the one-day game. Too many runs, too many wickets, too much excitement. Chris Cowdery, thank you for joining me on Talking Pints. John says, Nigel, have you ever got a golden duck in a game of cricket? Well, I've never bowled a hat-trick, no. Yes, I did get a golden duck, and I'm a member of the Primary Club, which is a charity that supports blind kids to play cricket. I bet you've had a few golden ducks.
Sadly, I'm a member too.
There we are. But anyone that's got a duck in first ball, a golden duck in any form of cricket, you can join the Primary Club. This Thursday will be in Crawley. Such is the demand, we've increased the size of the venue. I've got half a dozen plus tickets left. If you want to come, gbnews.uk. I'm done. Back with you tomorrow. Now over to Lawrence Fox.
Thanks, Nigel. Tonight we will be talking about Nadine, obviously. Should the plebs turn off their heating? And China. And we will also be talking about bad paintings and good woke paintings. After weather.
Good evening, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office. The north-south split continues tonight. It's clear and frosty for many in the south, mild and cloudy further north. There will be some thick fog patches, however, particularly under the area of high pressure across parts of the south. Further north, we've got low pressures just drifting to the north of Scotland, but they are bringing westerly breezes, a lot of cloud, a bit of drizzle here and there over northern Scotland. Some light drizzle possible in southern Scotland, northwest England. But for most, it's dry. Where we've got the clearer skies in the south, that's where we are going to see things turning potentially foggy, and certainly it will be frosty once more, well below freezing in towns and cities, and much lower in rural spots. Not quite as cold across the far southeast and East Anglia. Quite cloudy skies here. Even the odd shower is possible, especially close to the coast. That's going to make for a grey, cold day on Tuesday. Some fog around first thing across parts of England and Wales. May take a while to clear, but then we should see some sunny spells. A lot of cloud across North Wales, northwest England, Scotland and Northern Ireland, with some rain trickling into the Highlands, but some brighter skies across Aberdeenshire, could see highs of 12, maybe even 13, whereas further south, 4-5 degrees, even with the sunshine where the fog sticks, temperatures may struggle to get much above freezing, and a frost will return pretty rapidly tomorrow evening as well. And again, we could have some fog patches thickening up across the south. Further north, a shift. We've got these lines of rain spreading in. These are weather fronts bringing a damp start to Wednesday morning across parts of southern Scotland, and that rain will trickle its way into northern England, parts of Wales as well. So a different day here. Behind there is those weather fronts. Brighter skies will follow on Wednesday across Scotland and Northern Ireland, with just a few showers. In the south, it'll be another cold day on Wednesday, but signs of temperatures starting to tick up here as we go through the rest of the week. Goodbye.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB Plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Happy Monday, chums. It's 8 o'clock and I'm Lawrence Fox. Tonight we have one hell of an off-compliant show for you. Tory party chairman and former Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi has faced calls to be sacked as it has emerged that he reached a £5 million settlement with HMRC. He's claimed they called it careless but not deliberate. So we'll be taking a good look into that. The National Grid offered cash in exchange for not using energy between 5 and 6 p.m. today, and it's been suggested this could be the new normal as we head towards net zero targets. So turn off your heating, poor people. We reached out to the National Grid, but there was no one available to comment because they were all outside trying to turn the wind turbine blades by themselves. And also, have museums gone too woke? Tate Britain have come under fire for replacing some of the classics to make way for an inclusive display, which focuses on slavery, colonialism, and racism. Yippee! Professor Robert Toombs is here. Don't miss it. And don't forget, most importantly, I want to hear from you. Send in your views to me at gbviews@gbnews.uk. That's all coming up after headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Lawrence, thank you, and good evening to you. The Prime Minister has asked his independent ethics advisor to investigate the Tory party chair's tax affairs. Nadeem Zahawi has welcomed the investigation, saying he's confident he acted properly throughout. The former Chancellor has admitted, though, he paid a penalty to HMRC following an error over shares in his polling company YouGov, which he co-founded. He hasn't disclosed the size of the settlement, which is believed to be almost £5 million. And the BBC chairman, Richard Sharp, says he welcomes a review into how he got his job by the Commissioner of Public